What's up? Thanks for watching. Today we're getting back into it on Comancheep version 2. So today I'm going to do something that I really didn't want to do, but it's going to happen. Let's get started. I really did not want to dovetail the Comancheep on the front. I don't know why, just kind of like the look of the way it was. Of course I did the back, but the front, I liked it. But I've decided I'm going to do it. And the reason being is because I need to get a tube to connect here to make this strong, because I need a tube to come from there to the bumper. And doing that, it just doesn't work out right for me to have to come through here and kind of try to bend tube through here, and it just, yeah, it's a lot of work to try to get that to happen. So instead of doing that, I'm going to dovetail it, and that will make my job a lot easier. So here's the other side, what I've already started. And today we're going to make that side match. It's kind of hard to see from here how much that one is in, but it's a good ways. And it's going to look sort of like the Scorpion. I'm not sure how I'm going to do the front yet, but all that will figure itself out in time. So, to do a dovetail, or a bob, whatever you want to call it, to do it, you pretty much need to get rid of your inner fender wells. That's step one. Can you do it without? Yes, but you have to kind of notch it in a V, and you got to be really precise, otherwise that V is not going to match up. Step number 2 is to bend the sheet metal. So I'll show you here in a second. What we're going to do is cut and bend. That's pretty simple. And then step 3 is to rework all that so that it holds itself up. And then step 4 will be to cut the hood, which that's not going to be fun. So to dovetail the front fender, I need to cut it, but I don't need to cut the whole thing. I just want to bend it right about here. But to bend it, you need to cut out the parts that are beveled, because it's got different angles to it, right? So I'm going to take a level and put it right here where I want the bend, and then I'm going to level out the top. It's right about there. Now I'm going to mark a line right here. And now, since it's bending that direction, it's going to close this gap. So basically I need to make a gap here, and it doesn't need to be much. You always want to do less of a gap, and you can always cut more. But basically I want it to look something like that. And then when it bends, these 2 points will meet up again. I'm also going to make a little relief cut right here, and maybe a little bit through the Comancheep symbol right there. Those are the only places I'm going to cut. Here, here, and here. Oh, maybe this X. And then everything else will be able to just bend. Now, having made those relief cuts, it should bend fairly easy. There we go. Check that out. So I've showed you in the previous video how to measure an angle. And basically what I'm getting right here is about 60 degrees, so I'm going to bend a tube for that. And here's what I end up with. So now I need to hold this tube up here where I think it's going to go and mark. I need to mark this tube with where it needs to be notched. Now let's also add one more complexity from our last video. Last time we notched tube, it was just at a 90-degree angle. But this time we need to take that measurement, turns out to be 66 degrees. The number doesn't matter in this case. I'm going to use the angle finder. So there's a little knob right there. You just lock that down where you want it. And we need to notch this tube so that when it sits in on this tube, both sides match. So if you were to do that at a 90-degree angle, it'd match like this, but we want it to match like this. So to do that, once I put the tube in my notcher here, I need to loosen this and I can move the angle now of the notcher itself. So I'm going to take my angle finder, and you can orientate this however you want here. Let's do it like this. So I'll put this flat spot against that flat spot, basically. Sometimes this can get confusing too, which angle you're trying to go for. That angle's lined up with that angle, and that is exactly 66 degrees. Now I need to tighten this to make sure it doesn't move. Then we need to readjust the tube so that we get about, I don't know, 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch of bite right there. Alright, so I've got that end, but this end is where it really gets complicated, because not only do you have two tubes coming together, so you need two notches. You need one going this direction, and then you need one going this direction, but also we're right in the middle of a bend, so the tubing notcher is actually not going to fit correctly because that tube isn't straight, it is in a curve right there. So basically what we're going to do is cut it long and then just inch our way shorter and shorter with the, sometimes I'll use the plasma torch once I get it pretty close, but a lot of times I'll just use the grinder to grind out what it looks like it's going to be. So I'll use a pen and make little marks, and then the grinder to grind that out. Okay, so that's sort of what I'm looking for. It's somewhat close, but the tube is much longer than it needs to be. It needs to shorten by about 2 inches or so. So I'll keep whittling on that until it fits. I wanted to make it long so that I have extra room to play with it in case it doesn't work out. I've got a good 2 or 3 inches to spare. Alright guys, check that out. After about 1,800 times of going back and forth, I finally got it pretty much perfect right there. I kept getting shorter and shorter and shorter until it matched on this side. And so this is where I'm at. This side, like that side. Oh man, screwed up the lens again. Now, how do I know where to weld that? Well, the first one that you do doesn't matter. You can put it wherever you like. The second one though is much more difficult. Let me show you. So here's the passenger side. This is the one that I did first. You always want to just tack this stuff up. Don't weld it in place until you're ready to, which shouldn't be for a while. Now, I just made this look good. I got it in quite a bit. I kind of matched the line that I wanted with this Fender. But how do you get the other side to match? Well, you need to get 2 plumb bobs. So what I'm going to do is put that on the outside of the tube. I'm going to put it right up against the fender here so that we know where it is as far as front to back. And then I'm going to measure from the frame, and we get exactly 6 inches. So if I do that on the other side, get 6 inches, I can tack it, and then theoretically both sides should be exactly the same. So let's put this side up where it's going, up there. Put this side in place, and now we'll put the plumb bob over the top. We'll line it up right where that other one was. Okay, right about there. Nice. Double check, and then we'll tack it up. Of course, you also want to make sure that it's level, so I put a level up there, but that doesn't make a bit of difference if your Jeep is not level. So what I did was I leveled the Jeep using air in the tires. So this side was a little low, so I just put some more air in that and got the bumper level basically, and then I leveled the fenders off of that. But besides it being level, it doesn't matter if it's level or not if it doesn't look right. So you want to make sure that you look at it, because even if it's perfectly level, if it doesn't look right, then it doesn't look right. So it's better to have it look right than to have it perfectly level. Now it's hard to tell without being able to put the hood down what it looks like, and without being able to back up any further than this, but I think it'll be all right. So now, what to do? What do you think the next step is? I think the next step is to get this radiator mount back in. That way I can figure out where the radiator needs to sit and everything else around it, because that's going to determine what the whole front end is going to look like. So let's weld that in place. I cut the ends off. It was kind of back here. We're moving the radiator forward quite a bit, and I'm going to weld it now. It did bend before because the frame kind of bent, but I'm not worried about that now. A lot of people said I should beef it up, but there's no room down here because of the power steering lines. On the Scorpion, I put like a 2x6 piece in here. But now that I've got all these tubes and I've got the frame strengthened, I don't think this is going anywhere. I think the next step is to put the hood down. I was going to build the grille and all that, and then I remembered, now that we've folded these in, the hood is going to be longer than the fenders because of the angle. So what I did was I built these little temporary brackets just to hold the fenders in place where I want them to be in relation to the tube. So I've got that mounted. Now let's put the hood down and see where we need to cut it. I needed to move the Jeep, so I moved the Jeep forward, and I forgot that the hood was attached to the ceiling, and it pulled it back a little too far. I might have actually bent it. There we go. Oh, it's not happy, that's for sure. Wow, that needs to be cut a lot. Since I can't pull the hood all the way down, what I'll do is I'll take a level and put it right there and level the level out, and I'll mark it right there. That's where I need to cut the hood. But I don't want to just have a raw edge on the hood. I want to fold it over. So I'll probably cut about 1 inch or a 1/2 inch further out than that, and then fold it. Of course, on a Cherokee hood, you have all this bracing underneath, so I'm going to have to cut that back to this line before I can fold the edge over. If you remember on the Scorpion, what I did here was I rolled it over. So I welded a piece of tube in here, and then I hammered and rolled the edge over, but I painted the Scorpion after that. So I don't plan on painting the Comanche, so I'm gonna have to try to do this without ruining the paint. Here's a little trick. If you wanna mark a straight line on an uneven surface, a straight edge isn't really gonna cut it because it's all wonky. Instead, use a piece of tape, and we're gonna set it on one side here, and then we'll set it on the other side and then smooth it down. That's gonna be pretty straight right there. All right, check it out. I got both sides cut. The hood is 1 inch longer than the under part because I'm planning on bending it right there over to match. You guys should see this lens. It's completely destroyed from all the sparks that were flying earlier. Anyway, what do you think the chances are that it's going to fit when I let it down for the first time? I haven't bent it yet, but it should fit in place with the little gap over the edge, unless it hits that tube, which it might. Let's give it a shot. Basically hitting right there on the edges where it needs to be folded at. So if I fold it, it should fit, hopefully, theoretically. That's the plan, man. Okay, here's what I'm gonna do now. I put some tape on there, but I left that little line to know where to bend it. The tape I'm hoping will help the paint, but probably not. I found some crescent wrenches. I've got to bend this at exactly 1 inch, and luckily these crescent wrenches, 8-inch crescent wrenches, are about exactly 1 inch deep. So I'm going to put these here and slowly start working this. And then I don't have any body tools. I'm not a body guy, but I've got a little mallet that I'll hammer it the rest of the way. Want to get that crease started. Oh, check that out. It's looking better by the minute. All right, what's next? That's always the question, isn't it? I think we fit the front grille part right there and see what that looks like. Oh, the microphone is over here. Yeah, won't fit in there. Let's take some tape maybe. We'll go across here. Now I'll mark the middle. I'll mark the edges here. Now, if I can find the middle of this guy, I'll be able to put the tape back on here and know where to cut. let's see what that's gonna look like. Not perfect, but it's looking a lot better than it was. This wouldn't be too hard, but I also have to make sure that the radiator fits in here. So that goes there. Let's make sure that the hood is going to close first of all. Uh-oh. It's always one problem after another. Let's see if this will fit in here. Well, that might be an issue. What the heck? Looks like I'm gonna have to move the radiator back. Maybe I can just tilt it back. That might be a good solution. Tilt radiator back. All right, check out what I'm working on now. I needed to find a way to hold the fender in place. I also needed to kind of lengthen the fender because since we bent the fender in, now the hood is longer. So I needed to do those two things, and I also needed a way to support the radiator. So this little piece that I'm working on is going to do all three. It looks like the fender, it's the same shape. It holds the fender in place. It's because it's welded to this bar right here, and then it's bolted to the fender. And then after I get all that mounted, I'll come here and figure out how to mount the radiator. So all it is two little pieces of steel like this that I've cut out to match the fender here. And then now what I need to do is take a piece of flat bar and weld it and separate it like so. And then I'll be able to do this side. All right, there's what I ended up with. Now, I just need to grind on it a little bit, and you won't be able to see the welds, and it'll look like one solid piece. Okay, so now this piece is going to get bolted to the fender, and then I'm going to push the fender up, and I need to notch out right here for the tube so that it'll actually fit up in here. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball it, mark it, and then notch that out with the grinder until this fender comes all the way up to where it needs to be flush with the hood. All right, I notched that out a little bit. Fits right in there. I'm going to put the bolt through, make sure everything lines up, and then I will weld it to the tube here. I had this battery up here holding the hood down right where I wanted it. So let's see. It's a tight fit. This side's pretty good. This side's pretty tight. So I've got two options that I can use to deal with that. I can either cut and kind of shape the hood in a little bit narrower, or I think what I might do is cut the tack here and just push that tube out just slightly, maybe an 1/8 inch, and then re-tack it. I think that'll be the easiest route. This tack is difficult to get to because it's way down in there, so I'll use a Dremel tool that'll allow me to get in here and cut it. Got it. Now I just need to move that out very slightly, you see that? And re-tack it right there, just a tiny amount. This is where a wedge will come in handy. These things are handy no matter what you're doing, leveling furniture or anything. So I'll just put this in here and push it in as far as I want to separate. That way I don't have to hold it and try to weld it at the same time. All right, check that out. Nice even spacing all along there. Now I'll do the other side and we'll be one step closer. So what I'm working on here is this little brace to kind of hold the radiator up from the top. And as you can see, I've got it mounted on these little rubber isolators to keep it isolated. And so they just go over the studs like that. And on the other side over here, I've got these little tabs, and these tabs are basically going to weld to this metal piece over here, and it'll just allow me to unbolt this bolt and nut and pull off this center section and pull the radiator out separately. Next up, I need to figure out where to attach this header panel. So it needs to attach to this radiator support. So what I've done is I've made some little brackets here, and these are going to attach to these bolt holes from the factory from the header panel, and then I'll just weld them to here. Each one was a little different, so I had to bend them a little different, but they're going to go just like that. All right. Whoo, tolerances are really tight right there. All right. Okay, check this out, guys. My tolerances here are very tight. In fact, they're so tight that I can't seem to keep the radiator from being grounded, especially when the hood comes down. There's just not enough room. So I started doing some research, and there's two trains of thought here, and let's get your opinion. Some people believe that the radiator should be mounted on rubber and not grounded at all, not touching any metal. And some people believe that the radiator should have a ground strap running to it. In fact, while doing the research, I even found radiator caps that had a sacrificial anode in them, which tells me that, I don't know, I'm just all confused now. Should you ground a radiator or should you not ground a radiator? If you are allowed to ground a radiator, then I guess it's okay that it's touching here, because this isn't the actual part where the coolant is. It's not going to rub a hole in it. So I think I'm going to leave it like that for now, but let me know what you think in the comments below. I guess the thing that people are concerned about is electrolysis through the coolant. So I'm confused, I don't know, but here's what I've got. All right, guys, that's all I got for you in this video. Next, what we're gonna have to do is make a tube across the front here. We'll need to make some hood pins to keep the hood closed, and we'll need to work on the shock hoops for the shocks. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Make sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.